Thanks for that response. I kind of am disappointed in those Matrix videos I made because I didn't really explain clearly the point that I really wanted to get across. Kind of went off on all these tangents. Um, the idea was that what we know scientifically, impartially, objectively even, about what reality is and what the brain does, uh, what science is revealing to us about consciousness is incompatible, at least it seems to me, with the idea that we could exist as, what we think of as our identities, as me, as nothing but a brain in a vat. Um, the more consciousness is studied, the more it seems to be embedded in the world. Um, and typically it seems like common sense to say that my thoughts, my intelligence, my ideas, my consciousness, my awareness exists in here. Because, when you smash this thing, consciousness disappears. The world is gone for this observer. Which, that's completely valid, but think about what this brain would be without the body that houses it and without the world that provides it with objects for its intentional projections. Without a world, there can't be an observer. And so to try to isolate this magical consciousness stuff, this suffering or identity only in this brain case, is to forget how dependent it is upon everything that's around it. It's dependent on the heart, at least to pump its blood. It's dependent on my stomach, at least to provide it with glucose. It's dependent on my reproductive organs to pass the genes along that will allow more brains to exist in the future. Intelligence is a function of that entire system of activity. And together, intelligence with lust, with appetite and emotion, all of these things go together to form one human experience. But see, that's the thing. We're always isolating ourselves. We think of ourselves as individuals, as my brain being the seat of my consciousness. When I think what we call consciousness, what we feel as our identity, it has more to do with how we communicate with others, how we share ideas, than it does with anything inherent to our own self-criticism or internal dialogue. I mean, when we think, we're talking to ourselves, and we're speaking, a public language, English or whatever language we happen to speak. We can't think silently, or at least, we can think without speaking, but we can't think without hearing inside, without hearing voices. And we really can't be sure of what we mean, even when we're using those internal voices, until we speak it and explain it to someone else. Until we have others which confirm our particular way of describing our experience, we're not sure if that's a worthwhile or a good or a true way of describing that experience. We need the feedback from the other users of the language in order to ground our use of the language in reality. So in a sense, at least at that level of consciousness, of human consciousness, then I'm saying there are other levels of awareness that humans maybe pay less attention to now than most animals do. Gary, you'd probably just call them instincts and corrupt longings for self-gratification or whatever, but I would give them a little bit more credit than that. They're just as intelligent and aware of some level of reality as the intellect is as our, discursive, logical, language-using minds are. But even that intelligence, that language-using mind, is still part of a network. We're already in the matrix, and we can already experience it in whatever way we happen to find that works well. We're doing it with others. It's not just our dream. We're all dreamers together in a common shared dream world. And we're doing reality together. That is, reality is constantly changing. We are participating in the unfoldment of that change. And there are no static laws, because there's no lawgiver. There's no outside designer that gave the universe all of this order and gave us the language or the instruction manual to understand and control it. That kind of materialism or reductionism, it's just a leftover of that sort of dogmatic pride in human intelligence that, the Catholic Church kind of created. It's the first philosophy that really took the Greeks and added this faith to it that said we can know for sure about what the world is because we know God, and God wouldn't trick us. The Greeks didn't necessarily make that assumption. They were more skeptical, but the Christians took the Greek philosophy and made it into a dogmatic science, really. A materialist science, in the sense that God created a mechanical world that we can break down and understand because we have access to the mind of God, at least in germ, as our soul. And any science that thinks that it is actually mapping the objective world, that it has actually understood it and can control it, I think that's based more on faith than any practical reality. So I'm a skeptic of the idea that human beings are going to invent a matrix, a virtual reality for themselves, because I think that reality already exists. We're already participating in the creation of that exact thing. We're not going to create one. It already is happening. If we do create some virtual world where human beings can somehow, people already lose themselves in the internet, so I'm not saying it's not possible for people to choose to become virtual beings. People already have, second lives on the internet. And I don't think it will require too much of a enhancement of the way that the internet is fed into our senses for it to become a single life, and people just live entirely online. The thing is, though, they'll still have a body here on Earth that needs to breathe oxygen and eat and shit and be taken care of, and exercise and get out and do stuff. It can't just be laying in bed drilling on itself, hooked up to a virtual simulation. It needs to take care of itself. So do we really end suffering by doing that? I don't think so. I guess I'll leave it at that, keep this video relatively short, so thanks for listening.